Good morning, good day, and good evening. Welcome to episode 141 of Tech Over Tea, and today we have a returning guest. I thought my overlay was broken again, but it's not. I'm just seeing things. Welcome back to the show, The Evil Skeleton. How is it going?
I'm doing well, and you?
Yeah, not too bad. So, you were the one who asked, who sent a message to me like, hey, I'd be up to come back onto the podcast, and you were saying just before that you had nothing in particular you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, that's because you I guess at the end of the last before you said that like you'd like to have me again,
Mm.
so
So you just like,
so I just figured I should ask.
yeah, just
Yeah.
come back on, nothing to talk about, just wing it, see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, and if I remember right, you had some questions to ask as well last time that you didn't. I don't know, I might
Uh,
be wrong.
I might have. I deleted what I had there last time. Let's go all the way back to the history and see what it says here. I don't remember what I said. Anyway, I've got things written down now, and luckily, things are actually kind of happening in the FOSS space right now, so, there's still things to
Mhm.
talk about. And
Mhm.
there's, things outside of the FOSS space, like, Elon finally buying Twitter, which I'm
Yes.
really surprised actually happened.
Me as well.
But I don't know if you saw this. This happened like yesterday, but Source Hut made an update to the way they're handling cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I saw it. It's amazing. I completely agree with what they did.
So for
That's
anyone who hasn't heard about this yet, Source Hut decided to update their TOS, and for the most part, are removing crypto projects. So you said
I completely agree with that.
you agree with this.
Yeah,
So
100%.
what's your problem with crypto? Why don't you like this?
Well, the article explains it well. It's mostly more of a like I guess advertisement or
Hmm.
yeah. There's just I'm trying to make it look appealing when it's not really a good projects. I don't know if
Hmm.
that makes sense or not. Um,
Sort of just using crypto as like a way to make the project sound exciting, but if the project didn't have crypto in it, it'd be a nothing burger.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-mm.
That's why I completely agree with the update.
So, SourceHub is planning to roll out updates to our TOS effective in 2023. The changes most likely to impact users is the prohibition of cryptocurrency or blockchain related projects on SourceHut. These domains are strongly associated with fraudulent activities and high risk investments, which take advantage of people who are suffering from economic hardship and growing global wealth inequality. Few to no legitimate use cases for this technology have been found. Instead, it is mostly used for fraudulent get rich quick schemes and to facilitate criminal activity such as ransomware, illicit trade, and sanctions evasion. These projects often encourage large scale energy waste and electronics waste, which contributes to the declining health of Earth's environment. The presence of these projects on Source Hut exposes new victims to these scams and is harmful to the reputation of Source Hut and its community. Jesus Christ, Drew. I've not read this yet. I just saw this happen before I went to bed last night.
If you continue reading, it gets progressively worse. Like they even explained to some of the people they ban.
Oh,
I don't know if it's like yeah. You might want to, if you have free time later on, you can try to
uh,
read the rest, like the threatening and harassing others part.
wait, threatening
It, it
We've expanded the
if you
list.
scroll down.
Yeah, I see it now. We've expanded the list of prohibited behaviors to include threatening and harassing others. We've already banned users for this behavior. We can terminate service at our discretion, but we decided to make this explicit. The scope of this is intended to cover incidents where users harass others or make bigoted, racist, homophobic, transphobic, etc. comments on our platform. We take account termination seriously and use it only as a last resort. In the history of Source Hut, only 2 users have been banned. The first user was harassing maintained and failed to respond to emails seeking to discuss their behavior. The second use, Jesus, I'm not reading that one.
Yeah, that's why I said try to read it in your free time because it gets worse.
Yeah, I see that. Um,
Mhm.
I agree with all of these changes.
Me as well. That's why I was like, that is an amazing change. And I actually found that from your Twitter post.
Yeah, I'd read like the first, 2 paragraphs. That's about as far as I got through it. Um, Jesus Christ. There's too much stuff happening this week. Like, we've got
Yep.
this, we've got a couple of days ago, Gnome shutting down their mailing list finally. And just like, fun stuff's going on.
Yeah.
I don't know. The crypto thing is a weird one. So I do definitely agree that most of the use cases out there basically aren't use cases. It's like, hey, it's sort of like the early days of the internet where you form a company and it's companyname.com. The company has like no value to it. It's not really producing any product that anyone cares about. It just has this thing attached to it, and therefore the value is extremely inflated. But Drew does say somewhere in here that he is willing to make exceptions if your use case actually has like some legitimate purpose to it. So he's not entirely against crypto as a concept. It's more like, as the vast majority of these projects don't really have any value, you might as well just throw everything out and deal with the exceptions as they come, basically.
Yeah, and I completely agree because, yeah, like some projects may add some value, and I respect that he's willing to make exceptions for that.
Well, we're still in the very early days of this tech anyway, so even if a lot of the use cases now don't really make that much sense, it's a possibility that someone works something out into the future.
Hopefully, not a big, massive company who is going to make a monopoly out of it.
Well, that's probably what's going to happen. Look,
Yeah.
we know how this
Google.
stuff goes. Like, Google's going to do something, Amazon's going to do something, maybe not Meta because Meta might not exist in a couple of years. Yeah. The only thing that Meta still is going for is the fact that they're such by far the biggest social media platform. Even though people are like, I'm leaving Facebook, Facebook's bad, it still has the most users out of all of the platforms. I think it still has more users than YouTube does. So,
That I'm not sure, but still, it
I
is
know they're
still a
very close
massive
together.
platform.
Yeah. So even though, Zuckerberg is burning money with the metaverse that has 34 active users, the company's still afloat somehow, but their stock prices are kind of tanking, which I'm
Good.
happy to see.
Yeah. Hopefully, Facebook open source doesn't die, though. I think that's a really
Yeah.
nice, I guess, department, we can say. They did a lot of work to Butterfs, and I fully respect them for that.
Well,
Especially the Z standard algorithm. It's amazing.
Well,
Oh,
they
yeah,
also
sorry for
made
interrupting.
they also made React, the web framework, which
Yeah,
people can
I don't
argue
know
about whether.
much.
Sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying that I don't know much about it, but I know that it has a really good rating. So
Yeah. People can argue about whether React is the best, or I don't even know what the like big frameworks are right now. The web space moves so quickly that if you stop paying attention for like 6 months or a year, everything on the cutting edge completely changes. Compare this to like, more traditional desktop development. If you look at Linux or Windows or Mac OS or even like mobile stuff even, the best practices you see don't really change that often. Like, everyone on Linux is still building GTK and Qt applications, but if we look at the web space, there's so much going on, and it is evolving so quickly that there was a video I found, I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe it was an article, one of the two, where it was making a joke over like how much the web changed, but when you get to the end and you start looking up some of the tech they mention, none of it was a joke. Like, they mentioned like 30 different things that changed in the span of 6 months, and all of it actually happened. I don't know how much attention you pay to the web space.
Oh yeah, and what I do put attention as well
Mm.
is that most of those websites they fail when it comes to accessibility standards.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not really the big companies that are adopting these changes very quickly. It's more like, it's a startup culture. You have hundreds of startups forming, and most of them are going to fail. And when you're a startup, you don't have all of this legacy code. So that means you can use whatever the latest tech is, which isn't always the best of plans, because sometimes the latest tech needs a bit more time to mature to the point where it's viable on a large scale platform. Like, I keep getting people who tell me that, hey, why are we using Rust in the kernel? We should be using Zig. Why?
Fuck.
Have you heard of Zig?
Yeah, I did, but I know very little about it.
I don't know anything about it either. What I do know is the language is like 6 years old. So,
Oh my god.
yeah, I don't think a 6-year-old language is going to make its way into the kernel.
Rust barely made it into the kernel, so
Yeah.
let's not expect Zig as well.
Well, the Rust thing's a weird one as well. Like, I think a lot of people want to, I guess, how would you describe it? Want to say that Rust is getting into the kernel because of the Rust stations. They have argued enough for it, and now it's going to make it in. Ignoring the fact that Linus Torvalds is the one that runs the kernel. So, last I checked, Torvalds wasn't going to just, bend over and accept whatever people want to do.
And yeah, it's pretty like we can see from history that he's not the most open, or I mean, I wouldn't say not open, but he's not going to accept every single thing in the world either.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
he has shown this.
Well, I think the only way you can come to that opinion is if you don't know the history of getting Rust into the kernel. Like, when it first started being brought in, like when the initial patch set came in, when it was on its first RFC, Linus tore it to shreds. Like, so it was using a lot of the Rust standard library, and Rust has this issue which is great for the user space, which is the memory safety. So in Rust, if under some conditions, if your application ran out of memory, if you used up all the system memory, the application would just panic and crash, which you can't have happen in a kernel. That's just not viable. So he was tearing things like that apart, and he wasn't a lot of people, when they're not very experienced with programming, will talk about things like the syntax, but Linus was more focused on the tooling available, because we've spent 30 years improving C tooling around the Linux kernel. Bringing in a new language to that is going to take time for that tooling to mature to the point where it's actually at the same standard. Compile times aren't the major deal, but the documentation tooling and things like that, all of that stuff is really important. I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah. No, not really. I mean, I completely agree. There's nothing much I can add.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, the syntax thing's a weird one. So you were saying that I know on your blog you were saying how you got into programming very recently. I don't know when you actually posted that blog, but it's your latest one, isn't it? Or one before latest?
Yeah, the latest one on my birthday, actually, 10th
Oh, it's your birthday,
of
was
October.
it? Oh, happy birthday for the October 10th then.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't actually
but yeah, that's...
read through it, but I did notice it. So, a brief introduction. How did you actually get yourself into programming then? What was your experience? Because I've said mine plenty of times before. I had a programming course in high school that was Java-based. It was a game development course. I did that for the 2 years I did that. Then I went to university and, studied programming concepts, Python, things like that. And now I'm here, not really use my programming. But you actually do use it. So how did you get started?
Okay, so basically, I'm not going to explain before I got started because I tried many times but I kept failing. But I'm just going to explain the part where it was actually successful, like when I actually got started. So that was just a year ago. I took like I actually dropped out of college because I just couldn't take it anymore. Teachers were horrible. The courses, like I was taking programming courses, but they were just horrible because of the
Right.
teachers.
Yep.
So I tried another approach, and it's to take an online course, a free online course by Harvard University.
Do
It's
you know what the
called
course?
CS.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
I was about to ask exactly what you're gonna say right now.
Yeah. So the name of the course is CS Computer Science 50, or Harvard's Introduction to Computer Science, or CS 50 as well. And holy shit, they have amazing like they have a lot of resources. They have their own Discord server. They have Reddit. There are many platforms where you can ask questions if you ever need help. Their lectures are about like an hour to 2 hours long, but they're literally quality videos. Like the microphone is amazing. The professor explains really well. And they have a lot of guides. They even have their own C documentation, like their C manual. That is, yeah. Usually, the C manual is very, very technical, but like CS50, they have their own manual that is basically in layman's, not exactly in layman's term, but it is simplified. So they're not going to. They try to avoid information overload as much as
Yep.
possible by using simple terms. And that's really how I got started with programming, and I started completing their courses. Their assignments,
Yep.
and from that, I gained more and more experience. By the end of, almost the end of the course, we learned Python, CSS, HTML, and JavaScript, and C, of course.
Yep.
Then I was like,
That's a
okay, you
weird
know what? I want to
combination.
try.
Like all of these high level languages and C.
Yeah, we started from scratch. Then,
Sure. Okay.
because it's an introduction to programming, so it's made for people who have no idea how programming works. So Scratch is a pretty good utility when you want to start grasping the concepts of programming.
That's
At least
fair,
in my
yeah.
opinion.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. After that, for some reason, not for some reason, like the way they approach it is really well done. They go from scratch to C.
Sure.
Yeah, it sounds weird. It sounds weird, but they explain it in really like in layman's term as well. With like a lot of simplifications, they try to make you write really good code and take good practices. And after that, they make you use Python. So you can have a lot of the understanding that you got from C and then apply it on Python.
Ah.
Yeah, it's a bit. I don't know how to explain it. It's more something that clicks as you go through the course.
That's a really weird setup.
It is,
I
but
can
at least it helps. It helped me a lot.
No, I guess if Harvard is making this public, they've clearly thought this through. Because
Yep. Yeah.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say because my introduction to programming was very, very just teaching it like a maths class. Like, okay, we're gonna study this subject now, and we're gonna study this subject now. It's not like linking these. It's like a really boring maths class. Like they're not linking the subjects together and how these concepts, will ultimately help you build something in the future. It's more like, we don't know how to teach this, so yeah, just go. But the fact that how long is it? It's 12 weeks, 6 to 18 hours per week, self-paced. So yeah, like, what would that be? Like at most, like 200 hours, something like that. If like you're going really slow. The
I
fact
guess.
the fact that you can get like anything useful out of that shows that they've actually thought out the way this structure works. And you wouldn't go from scratch to C. unless they thought that structure out well.
And plus, Harvard is a well-known university.
Well,
like
yeah,
they're known.
It's
for
also
very,
Harvard, yes.
Exactly. So yeah, after that we go from low level to Python. Well, from C to Python, and then we learn JavaScript, HTML, and CSS for web programming, and then we combine with Python and start making web applications. And start playing with frameworks. And at the end, like the last assignment is a final project where you can do whatever you want. And I'm at my last project. I'm actually making my own application for once. Finally, I'm actually doing something. But yeah, so just a little spoiler. I'm making an application where it upscales images. So there's a utility. Hold on, let me get it.
Wait, is that why your Discord, what are the description message daily something or whatever the hell Discord call it is? I hate real Escron.
Yeah, it's exactly that because I'm using this like real ESRGAN utility.
Yeah,
the documentation is awful. It's just your average open source project. They have like a lot of the information are really, really unclear. So I am just torturing myself with that.
It doesn't help that
it's already.
I was gonna say it doesn't help that
Yeah.
all of the core developers, English is a second language by the sounds of it. Like they're all Chinese developers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I have my right. So the application is a GTK4 plus libadwaita application for it's a front end for this utility. So I'm trying to make it actually user friendly, but again, it's such a the documentation is so bad that the application itself is the easy part, not understanding this like
Yeah.
which. But yeah, I just posted. Don't look at the don't look at the commit history.
Oh, don't tell me that.
Yeah, just ignore that. But
What is?
Yeah. At some point, I'm going to yeah. At some point, I'm just going to rebase it and make proper commits. I'm just doing this because I often switch from my laptop to my desktop and vice versa. So I need to I need to put in my repo.
Have you heard of, I don't know, a Dropbox?
A drop. Oh yeah. I mean, I don't want to use that.
Or like, I don't know, whatever the thing. Yeah, a FOSS alternative, or just something that's not this.
Well, again, I can rebase, which
That's
I will
fair.
later on. But at least with Git, I can run git log. I can troubleshoot. Use
Sure.
git bisect and other of their commands and features. So at least I can take advantage of them. So the commit messages is not really a big problem for me. But yeah, again, I will rebase it. I will make proper commits afterwards. But yeah.
So, how was that experience going from scratch to C? Because I'm sure that was like a weird jump.
At first, I was like, "What the fuck?" But afterwards, they have their own C libraries, like
Right.
they're called CS50 libraries, and they give extra functions just to make it easier for users to get started with C.
Right.
Because again, they assume that you're already a technical user or like
Yeah,
writer, whatever you want to say.
You want to print a string? Make sure you set your buffer size correctly. Yeah.
Honestly, I forgot C, but yeah, they have a lot of those training wheels libraries that you can use, and after that, like as you go through, they ask you to not use those libraries anymore and to go with however C does it.
Yeah.
Because they start teaching you pointers and then algorithms and everything like that, and they teach you to take good practices as well.
How do they approach pointers? Because I've had a lot of teachers that are really bad at explaining them.
So they have a massive tablet, not a tablet, sorry, a monitor.
Mhm.
And they visually show, like, they visually present how pointers work.
Mm.
Um, yeah, again, I can't really explain it because it's I don't really remember the early.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, it's I did learn about pointers, about algorithms, and a lot of the technical even compilers. Actually, they teach a lot of those fundamentals of programming.
Okay.
Um, yeah, very verbosely and in a very simple way as well.
Mhm.
I mean, if you want to get started programming, like my go-to is CS50. It's entirely free of charge, so you don't have to pay for anything. It's also openly available. All you need is an account,
Mhm.
and I don't even think there's an age requirement as well. So, the only thing that you can optionally pay for is a certification. Just to brag to companies that, hey,
Right.
I got
Yeah.
a certification. But the course itself is entirely free. The resources you get are entirely free. And all their videos, their lectures are available on YouTube as well.
Mm. I wonder why they actually approached it this way. Like maybe they realized that a lot of people were starting to do these like boot camps because that's what this is. This is a self-paced boot camp. Um,
Mhm.
maybe they wanted to get in on that market, but lower the barrier to entry because all of the boot camps that are available, they'll either be charging you up front or charging you when you get a job. Here, they're only charging you. Do they have any like materials you can buy, like optional materials, or is it just the certification at
Not
the end?
just the certification, the materials are entirely free.
Hmm. So possibly they're trying to like onboard people into Harvard like that. Because I know Harvard does like online stuff like everyone else does now. So that could possibly what they're doing. Like you go through this introduction to computer science and then hey, you want to keep doing computer science, you're already in the Harvard system. Why don't you now enroll in like a full course or something like that?
Oh, that is a full course.
No, I mean like further courses. Like you've done your introduction. Maybe now you want to go do like the higher level stuff.
Uh, their higher level stuff are on CS, like in the EDX website, I'm pretty sure they're free as well.
Okay, you know my plan. Maybe they're just trying to do a good thing. I'm trying to think of how they're trying to make money somehow. Maybe they're just doing a good thing.
Certifications.
Yeah, I guess the certifications, but like I don't know how much a company would value that certification. Maybe someone would, but I
I,
yeah,
I think they would, because the word Harvard says a lot already.
that's fair.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I think it's worth it if
Mm,
you want to get started in programming. And at least the way I did it, at week 8,
mm-hmm.
um, I opened up a bit. I started contributing to open source projects.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also where I got started with bottles, like
Oh,
development
yeah.
with bottles. At first, I was just a helper, like I was just supporting users regarding Flatpak. But
Mm-hmm.
after that, I slowly started to contribute to bottles, like in code.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then um, like I knew nothing about GTK back then, or back then I mean like 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I asked Mirko, the maintainer of bottles, like I was asking him like a million questions about how this shit work.
Mm-hmm.
And he answered, like, he was really nice, and that's how I started to understand GTK. That's how it's thanks to him. Like right now, I am making my own application as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, like if you or just the viewer, whoever wants to get started with programming, one thing I really recommend is that don't hesitate to ask questions to developers. Don't feel intimidated, because if in open source, like, collaboration is welcome in practically everywhere. If you want to ask help, well, a maintainer will start helping you with code contributions, and in return, you can help them back
Mm-hmm.
it contributing to their software. That's basically what I'm doing with bottles, where the way I'm returning like the way I'm showing my appreciation is that I'm now a developer. I am making a lot of UI changes. I am fixing bugs. I'm adding new features, and Mirko has less to worry about bottles now because I am now merging some pull requests. So he has to review less. And now he can work on other projects as well. But yeah, again, don't hesitate to ask questions. I think that's one thing that people often feel intimidated when they want to get started with programming. They just don't want to feel like they're people will call them dumb. And I guess at some point as a developer, it is entirely inevitable to be called a moron or dumbass. Like you will get insulted
Yeah.
because users, a small chunk of users are always going to be entitled. So it's I wish I had learned this a lot sooner because I would have already like probably my application would have been already done like 3-4 years ago. If had I started this approach before. But yeah, I think at least for right now, like with the new approach, I think it's a really nice outcome. I'm actually really satisfied with it. And thanks to the knowledge I gained, I started contributing to other GNOME applications. Now, of course, I'm just talking about GNOME, but if you're more of a KDE person or, I don't know, you prefer another project, you can still do the exact same thing as I did, just you approach, just that you focus on another project. That makes sense.
What was it about bottles that like grabbed your attention?
Honestly, it's I was using it back then. Yeah, it's not exactly the most legal reason why.
For anyone who doesn't know what our bottles is, just give a brief explanation for what it is first.
All right, so Bottles is a GTK 4 plus libadwaita application that lets you run Windows software on Linux. It has a lot of gaming-related features as well. For example, game scope integration, VK Basalt integration, and it is meant in a way where you don't have to use Wine directly because, at least in my opinion, using Wine directly is a pain in the ass. And
I've seen
Bottles,
some Lucha scripts. It's definitely a pain in the ass.
yeah, I did as well. And honestly, even though I'm a developer of Bottles, I know nothing about the backend because Mirko did all the work. I look at the backend, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So I just focus on the front end stuff. Yeah, so with Bottles, I used I ran some Windows games, Windows only games. Not exactly the most legal way, but that's another topic. So yeah, and I liked it a lot. It helped me play my games that I always wanted to play as well. So, and I also noticed that there were a lot of typos. There were a lot of, there were some visual problems here and there. Because after all, Bottles is a really big app, and the Mirko, again, the maintainer, he does not speak English. Like it's not his first language. So, so yeah, I was just fixing typos, and then, I think, yeah, and then there's the CS50 part that happened.
Oh, okay. So you started working on Bottles first, just doing the non-programming stuff, and then you did the CS50 stuff, and then you started contributing to the code side.
Right. Yeah, at first I was just contributing to Flatpak because I'm pretty knowledgeable with Flatpak, so I was just helping people with permissions, and maybe sometimes I was reporting bugs and he was fixing them, but I was never like doing the development side.
Right, that makes sense. One thing I did want to ask you about is about GTK, about the GTK documentation. So you said you don't like the real Escron documentation. What about GTK's side? I've not looked at it myself, so I have no idea what it's like.
It is really technical. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it expects, it assumes that you do have knowledge, and you know how those stuff work. And again, like I've asked a million questions to him because there are many things that I couldn't understand. But as time went by, I became like more and more literate with GTK, and now documentation I understand more and more. So documentation, like they will assume a lot from you at first, which is gonna be overwhelming, and this is why I suggest people to ask questions to developers, because they will help you with those stuff, and then you will start learning more and more as you gain experience from that.
I'm just looking at the Hello World page right now, and I, I I don't think they understand the purpose of like explaining how Hello World works. Because it's just
Let me
like
check.
copy and paste this wall of code, and that does Hello World. We're not going to explain what any of this stuff does or link you to location we can find out what this stuff does.
Yeah,
Just go.
introductions, writing introductions of a of something like this, it's really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and that's why again, try to ask questions.
Yeah.
It's just better. And there are times, because there are different ways to write applications, GTK apps.
Yeah.
One, you can use it directly from the programming language, and the other one is by using UI files like XML or the newer one, Blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that they focus mainly on the code, like in this case C,
Yeah.
like writing UIs in C. Um, but I think the better practice is to use UI files, which they don't really explain
Ah, I
here.
see, I
But
see.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like, try to ask questions, try to like look at other projects, because I tried to get started from like similar pages like these.
Mm-hmm.
I gave up like almost instantly. It's really hard to understand those stuff,
Yep, yep.
at least in my opinion. But yeah, like this page in particular, I don't think it's good. But if we look at their widgets, docs.gtk.org,
Mm-hmm.
I think that one is fine.
Docs.gk. G.
And then there's hold on, do you want the link?
No, I found it.
Okay. And then there's also the libadwaita documentation,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really cursed domain, but
Gnome.pages.gitlab.gnome.org.
epic domain.
It's your it's your domain. You don't have to do this. What is this thing?
I have no idea, but hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
But yeah, the Adwaita docs looks exactly the same as the GTK docs.
Mm-hmm.
Just that it's for libadwaita
Yeah.
specifically.
I know you say you haven't really looked at it. I think the gold standard for software documentation and like getting started guides is React. Because React's getting started guide basically will take you from you know nothing about React and then introduce like a concept at a time and explaining what like each of them do and why you might want to use them and how like where else you can find information about this this section of the code as well. I think this is probably the best way I've ever. Plus, it introduces different ways of writing the same thing. This, I think, is probably the best way I've seen to introduce any like library like this. Obviously, they have their like proper documentation as well, where it's like, hey, here's the API reference guide, things like that. But their getting started guide does a really good job.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at it. I mean, I can't really skim through, but yeah,
it's not like just dumping a like, hey, here's 50 lines of code. Go ahead, just go, see what happens.
Yeah. Yep.
But GUI
At least
libraries,
that's nice.
GUI libraries are always going to be complex. Like, especially GUI libraries where you're writing the code, like writing a code in C, writing code in Java, whatever, rather than, you know, using some sort of markup language or in a lot of languages using some sort of graphical editor tool that will write the code for you.
Wait, can you repeat?
What I was saying was writing like GUI code, like just like in C or Java or Python or anything like that, is always going to be like pretty complex to look at if you're not like super familiar with the library. It's always going to be easier to do markup stuff, or for a lot of languages, there'll be these like GUI creator tools where it'll go and write that code for you based on where you place things in some sort of like GUI canvas sort of thing.
Yeah, there's one for GNOME. Hold on, let me.
I feel like I know what you're talking
It's called
about.
Glade. There's Glade. There's also I remember a fork of it. That is more newer, like that supports the Bedweta.
Okay.
Yeah, typically, they're not perfect.
Well,
so
yeah, it's gonna give you working code, but it's not gonna be the most optimal code.
well, Glade, it's not really code. It's the UI itself. So the XML, as I was talking about before, because the UI can be completely separate from
right.
the code.
Yep.
Yeah. So Glade, for example, they do the XML part. You can do your own design, mockups, whatever, and then you can export it as XML.
Yep. That's really cool. I'm not surprised that something does exist,
Yeah.
but you know, I think automation tools like this are actually like the direction we're going with like programming automation is kind of maybe a bit too far in some cases. Like when we're at the point where it's like automating UI design, that's one thing. But now that we're sort of moving in the direction of, you know, AI code generation, things like that, I don't know where we're going with these automation tools. And I don't know where in like 10 years we're going to be with like the quality that's available.
Probably Copilot will be writing everything for you now.
Yeah, have you been paying any attention to more like, hey, here's Copilot spitting out things it really shouldn't be spitting out? Like a couple of days ago, maybe it was a week ago or so, where it was spitting out like, what do you call them? Like fixed statements. Yeah, fixed statements that had Twitter handles attached to them that were like actual real Twitter handles.
Oh my god, that's epic. That's amazing. I mean, I've seen some cursed stuff, just on Twitter or Reddit, whatever, but I wasn't paying attention to like the whole thing.
That's fair.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm fine with AI. Like, my only gripe with Copilot is that it's proprietary, and you know I find that very exploitative to open source, and that's more reasons for me why I'm trying to push Mirko to move from GitHub, because like Microsoft, I guess GitHub and Microsoft, they're going to try to exploit open source. As time goes by, I don't want them to I don't want bottles to stay on a very exploitative platform. At least in my opinion.
Where would it be going? To GitLab? If it did leave GitLab.
Yeah, either GitLab or GNOME's GitLab, because we're trying to make it reapplied to GNOME Circle. We're slowly fixing the reviews. We're slowly addressing reviews.
What is GNOME Circle?
Oh, hold on. Give me a second. Let me just get the
applications and libraries extending the GNOME ecosystem.
So yeah, they're just third-party apps that use GNOME technologies.
Right.
Yeah, and so we're trying to get bottles in GNOME Circle, among with many third-party applications. And I think that if it gets accepted to GNOME Circle, we also have some of the benefits from it. Like we can move our repo to GNOME's GitLab. We can GNOME, they have their own nightly Flatpak remote, so we can make we can release experimental builds, nightly experimental builds, to the GNOME remote, so other people can test as well. So there are still some benefits from that. Let me find the link.
I had not heard about this. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Benefits.
They're trying to. I mean, we already know at this point, GNOME. They're trying to make it an actual platform. Which is nice. I completely respect that.
One of the benefits you get is a gnome.org email. Very important benefit you get.
Well, you must brag about it, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Just imagine like just an outsider. They look and you have the gnome.org because they don't know what GNOME is. So for them, it's gonna be an actual gnome. Oh man, that's epic.
I have had some outsiders show up on random videos where I mention GNOME, and they're like, "I have no idea what the hell this is."
Yep, and I can see why.
Yeah, it's
where is it?
not exactly the most SEO friendly name, we'll say.
Yep.
At least with like KDE, you're like, okay, I don't know what a KDE is, but it's clearly not something. Does KDE stand for anything? I have no idea actually. I've never even thought about that.
Not anymore. Before, as far as I know, it used to stand for Cool Desktop Environment with a K.
That sounds like something that would happen. Okay.
Yeah, now that name was like slowly became redundant. Even GNOME, in case you don't know, it's an acronym for GNU Network Object Model Environment. Don't ask why I memorized it, but even that doesn't mean anything anymore. It's GNOME is just GNOME nowadays.
GNOME Network. I don't remember what you just said.
GNU Network Object Model Environment.
I'm gonna forget that in 5 minutes again.
Should I just write it down?
What a name.
Yep. But hey, at least they got rid of that name. It's just GNOME now.
Yeah. That's so stupid.
Open source names in a nutshell.
Well, not just open source names, just programming names in general.
Yeah.
PHP was a bad one. What does PHP stand for? Was it PHP? No, PHP was the one that made sense. There's a programming language that has a recursive name. I don't remember which one it was though.
Recursive names.
It doesn't matter. Either way, the software. Wait, no, PHP does. No, PHP is it was derived from personal homepage tools, and now it stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor.
Oh my god. Amazing name.
I hate them. I hate everyone who does this. I don't know how we got here.
Speaking of that,
what were we talking about? Oh yeah, what's that?
Yeah, speaking of like acronyms and things like that, Wine. Even Wine lost its meaning now.
Yeah, Wine's not an emulator. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't stand for that anymore.
Is it just Wine now?
Yep. Because the word emulator. That's because the word emulator is quite misleading. Because it depends per context. It doesn't really emulate Windows itself, but it does emulate like environments. So, there's some. If you're gonna be pedantic, well, it could be in some ways it is an emulator. In some ways it's not. I mean, I don't know why they removed it. I assume that's the reason why. But even if you go in Wine's website, they even say formerly known or something like that. Formerly a backronym.
Yeah, originally an acronym for Wine is not an emulator. Yeah.
Yeah, it lost its meaning over time as well.
Yeah, that's no fun.
So yeah, now that YouTubers or like not just YouTubers, but anyone who says the wine stands for that, it's outdated information now.
I had no idea that had ever changed.
Yeah, me too. Someone just out of nowhere told me that. I was like, oh my god, that was like a couple of months ago.
Mhm.
I was like, no way, that's my life was a lie. There's no way this happened.
Honestly, wine is one of those tools that if it didn't exist, like we can talk about how great Linux software is, but if wine didn't exist, we wouldn't be seeing a lot of the usage of Linux that we're seeing today. Like a lot of the modern
Mhm.
usage, especially the past like year or so, has been driven by the gaming side. Like in my case, for example, I wouldn't be on Linux. I still probably wouldn't still be on Linux if I couldn't game on it. Like
Yeah, me neither.
yeah, it's wine. It's one of those pieces of software that everyone sort of acknowledges exists, and we know is an important piece of software, but no one really talks about it.
Hmm. Yeah, we talk more about wine ecosystem rather than wine itself. So
Mm,
DXVK, VKD3D,
mm,
because
mm.
that's more on the gaming stuff. Wine is just you know, what it is.
Yeah, it was the
Um,
the back end of Proton.
yeah, and DXVK, VKD3D, and some projects here and there as well.
Mm, mm. Because I actually didn't realize when Wine had originally started. So it started around the year 2000, and I don't know if you've looked at the early bug reports from the Wine bug tracker. If you go back and look at like early bug reports for any of the really long running projects, a lot of them their initial bug reports are just absolute garbage. So in Wine's case, the first 8 bug reports, I don't know why they needed 8 for this, but the first 8 bug reports are test bug reports. And they just get progressively worse and worse and worse as you go on.
Just that. I guess it makes sense because they need to test their infrastructure.
Mm-mm. Well, you would expect those early bugs to be deleted, but in their case, they're like, it's here. Just keep it around, it's fine.
Gotta keep it open for
Mm-mm.
everyone to view.
Like, I've got a video. The reason I even know about this is I was planning a video on the first bug report in Ubuntu's history. Um, I don't know if
Mhm.
you know what this one is, but the first bug report ever made was Windows has more market share than Linux.
Wow.
And it has so many comments on it that the like Canonical's launchpad does not function. So if you go click on show all comments, it will time out every time because there's 2,000 comments and it doesn't count. You know how on launchpad if someone tags something or if a bug is mentioned somewhere, you've probably seen this if you ever looked at a bug report on there. It'll have like a message saying that that was done.
um. So like at the end,
Like you'll have so I just show you. Why didn't I just show you? That would make it easier. Um,
fair enough.
here we go. Oi, wrong one. This one. That one. Go. If it loads now. Watch it just not work at all. It's just completely broken. So if you scroll down past like those initial comments, you'll start noticing things that aren't numbered. Um, Actually, even the first thing, whenever any like updates are made, anything like that, that's not a comment made directly by a user, it won't actually have
Mhm.
a comment number attached to it. So it doesn't actually count those as comments. So you have the
Mhm.
2,000 actual comments, and then probably like another 1,000 or so like update things are just like, hey, here's a thing that's happening. So you click on show all comments, and the site dies. It has too many comments. It doesn't know what to do with them.
You all okay? Let's. That is. I love this. Oh my
It,
god.
hmm?
2020. Oh my god, this one was just a couple days ago.
Yeah,
Like,
people still
I mean,
comment on
a
it.
couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, people are still updating it for like the modern versions of Ubuntu and all of that stuff. Even though it got closed like 8 years ago.
Do they not have a locking like mechanism?
They didn't want.
Or what?
It's a joke. It's a joke bug report. No one bothered to lock it.
Ah, fair enough. Like, it makes sense. Yeah, I got into the timeout. That's
Yeah, it times out every time. I've tried it like 5 times. It doesn't work.
my god.
But I mentioned a bit earlier the GNOME mailing list thing, so that they're actually finally shutting them down.
Yeah, they're moving completely to Discourse now. Finally.
Yeah.
I hate mailing lists so much. Like, I'm part of some groups, especially Fedora Quality Assurance. They heavily use mailing lists, and I unsubscribe because I just can't stand mailing just mails anymore. It gets spammy so quickly, and I just don't like the interface as well of most clients. I don't even think there's a good email client so far. Even web clients aren't good. I just feel like emails are something that are like broken beyond repair. But yeah, sorry for the rant.
No, that's fine, because I was about to say that a lot of the older people in the FOSS space don't want to acknowledge the fact that among the younger people, email is basically a dead tech. Like, email is only used because people keep using email. As soon as, like, I would say in like 20 or 30 years, I wouldn't be surprised if email basically goes the way of, like, goes the way of radio, where, you know, some people still use it, but, you know, no one really cares. Like, it just happens to be there. It's this thing that sort of just exists, and someone's gonna use it. But, like, most of the communication happens through other means, whether it's through DMs on platforms, whether it's through... People still like forums. Forums are still great. So whether it's through that...
Yeah, plus they're more discoverable as well.
I think, okay, what mailing lists are really good for is when a platform... Like, okay, when we're talking about someone with a screen reader, if you have a badly designed forum, a mailing list archive is going to be better basically 100% of the time. Like, it's, in most cases, a mailing list is just text. They don't really do, like, HTML. Some of them will, you know, they'll have HTML, but most of the mailing lists are, like, people above 50 that only know what plain text email is. So, they're great for screen readers, and I don't think anyone can argue anything about that. But when it comes to the general usability and what a lot of people are growing up with, most people are growing up with platforms like, you know, like Discord, like Reddit, like, you know, we can say what we want about proprietary platforms, but this is the experience that people have. So if you're going from that, and then you come over to Linux, and it's like, okay, now you want to contribute to this project, learn what a mailing list is. Go work that one out. And the documentation is usually not great. It's usually centered around people that already understand mailing lists. But then there's things like, you know, the GNOME Discourse, where it's just a forum. And it's, you know, and if you've used, basically if you use anything in the, any forums in the FOSS space, you probably use Discourse, because it's got a very noticeable style, and there's like Framework has it, Manjaro uses it, a bunch of other projects use it as well. Discourse it's a very recognizable platform.
Yeah, for good too, because Discord, at least in my opinion, it's a really, really good platform. I love every time I use Discourse. I just have a good experience because I can write, like, I can comment and I can navigate at the same time, because the comment section, it stays there, or, like, you know, the little input. There are also TLDRs if the thread is like really long. It helps you summarize the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Also, there's also a solved, like a little solved status. I don't know why there are many forums like software that don't do that, but having something that says that, oh, it is solved, and what comment solves it is a freaking, like, it's a godsend. Like,
Absolutely.
and there's also a where you left off. So, for example, yeah, so when you're reading through a thread and you close the tab and I don't know, 2 days later you join, like, you go back to that thread, it will let you know, like, where exactly you left off. Like, there's so many neat features like this in Discourse. It makes it really a really, really nice experience.
The only problem that Discourse has is there is a lot of people who, when you say the words discourse, their brain thinks Discord. That's the only problem it has. The names are way too similar. And I've had people complain about how bad Discourse is and how spammy the comments are and people spamming emojis because they think that we're talking about Discord.
Oh my god.
When people usually talk about, like, forums like this, they don't mention the back-end software. Like, with GNOME, because they're dumb and set their the subdomain to be discourse.gnome.org rather than everyone else who is like a forum dot whatever. So with GNOME you actually know, but everyone else is sort of like, this is just a forum. So when you start mentioning the backend software, some people just have no idea what the software running it actually was. But I mostly agree that Discourse is great. I have a few issues with it, like searching can be a little bit weird sometimes, because it, like, some of them, not the GNOME one, I think frameworks and maybe Manjaros will, like, override your browser search, which can be a bit annoying.
Search or history?
I like when you do, like, Control F.
Oh,
I like
okay,
trying
I
to do
didn't
their
run
own
into
sort of
that
search.
issue.
The GNOME one doesn't do it, but some of the other ones do override that. And I get it. Technically it's searching the forum better, but, like, just let me do my regular browser search, please. I'm happy with the way that works.
Speaking of Discourse, apparently Roblox, out of anyone, uses Discourse for their dev forums.
Why did
I don't know why, I just had to bring it.
What? Sure, okay. Yep, that's Discourse.
I don't remember how. Yeah, I don't remember how I discovered it, but I mean, I just went to the dev forums of Roblox and I'm like, wait, that's Discourse, that's freaking cool. Even the NVIDIA dev forums or, like, developer forums, they use Discourse as well. So, like, it is really practical to use Discourse.
Yep, that's definitely Discourse. It has got such a distinctive style that even when there is a very clear, like, theme applied to stuff, you notice Discourse very quickly. It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you've heard of it, but there is a CSS library called Bootstrap. And if you've if you've ever used Bootstrap, you will notice Bootstrap websites everywhere.
Yeah. I immediately do. Honestly, one thing that I love about Bootstrap is the buttons. I like that little animation it does when it starts glowing a bit. I know if you noticed that. I think it's really smooth and yeah.
Oh yeah. I know what you mean.
Yeah. I don't know why. I just like the animation.
Yeah,
but yeah, I know what you mean.
I like Bootstrap, but, like, it's like Discourse. It's, you notice it. You're like, this is, I know what you are. I know what you are straight away. No matter what you try to do to this, I see it.
Yeah, it's, once you know it, you cannot unsee. Well, it's just, you will always see it from now on.
I've noticed that a lot of it kind of makes sense why GNOME is dropping the mailing list because I've seen especially Reddit posts from certain people like Emmanuel Bassi who very clearly do not like mailing lists. Like thinks they are a relic of the past. Like one of the comments I saw from him on Reddit was someone was arguing about mailing lists being good because, you know, the Linux kernel likes them and this is the workflow that they go with. And hey, tell the Linux kernel that mailing lists are a bad way to submit patches. And he went on this big rant being like, the only reason that Linux still uses mailing lists is because they have Stockholm syndrome.
Oh my god.
There's no productive reason to use this. It's only Stockholm syndrome.
Okay, to be fair, like I know where he's coming from. Of course, he's obviously over. It's obviously like satirical,
Obviously,
but he does make a point because Linux kernel developers, they're very conservative when it comes to like technologies and use. They still use the ancient UI of Bugzilla, like the one that looks terrible, that looks ugly.
I don't think I've ever seen
Well,
the
they
Linux
still use
bug
patches.
tracker.
Sorry,
I said I don't think I've ever seen the Linux bug tracker.
it's Bugzilla.
Let's have a look. See, because I always just go,
I
"Oh my
remember-
god." Because
Looks bad, right?
Yeah, whenever I see something related to Linux, I'm always doing something on the mailing list. Holy shit, this is bad.
Yep, that's the old Bugzilla for you. KD, they're using Bugzilla as well, but they're using a newer, like a revamped interface called Bugzilla Harmony. Mozilla uses Bugzilla Harmony as well, for Firefox and Thunderbird and other projects. I think that Bugzilla Harmony is like much better UI. You can go in their websites and you'll see that it's just automatically an upgrade. There's nothing. You will probably not even find a regression or something that is worse from the old one. I think it's better in every single way.
Yeah,
but
that
yeah,
just looks much nicer.
Yeah. So I do. Emmanuel Bastier does have a good point that they stick with older stuff, and even the Linux kernel itself is very ancient and it hasn't moved a lot since. If that makes sense, like the Linus Torvalds has this number one rule of don't break user space.
Right.
So they're never, and GNOME, they're like the opposite. I mean, not to say that always break user space is a rule, but the rule is like, if something can be modernized, do it. Like, even if they're going to lose users, even if they're going to make some people upset, they should still do it in the name of progress. But Linux kernel developers...
New tagline for GNOME. GNOME, always break user space.
There's also systemd. They're like Pottering. He is a very progressive person. Like, he wants progress, and that's why I'm a really big fan of him and GNOME, because they push progress, and they also understand that you cannot make everyone happy. Every single change you make, you're gonna make someone upset. So, like, eventually, you should change something. And I understand why the kernel developers don't want to change, because we're talking about a kernel here, so I understand where they come from. And like mailing lists, because those kernel developers, they're heavily involved in corporate environments, and in places where corporations like
corporations love email.
They do?
Well,
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, they, send emails around for everything. We could a lot of the. Oh, okay. There's a difference between whether we're talking about corporations or a lot of the smaller tech startups, because a lot of the smaller tech startups are relying on things like Slack now. But when you're in a much bigger, legacy company, a lot of them have their workflows sort of set in stone, and a lot of those workflows are based around email. Honestly, they would still use fax machines if if you could still buy them new. If anyone still made them and sold them outside of Japan.
Yeah, but like I do understand why the kernel developers don't want to move to something new because they're when you try something, it's not free. It's not free time. You know,
Yeah.
you have to spend your time to relearn something. So it makes sense for them to stick like 2,000 years ago. That's completely fine. But they both have like both kernel developers and GNOME developers. They have good points. It just matters like the environment if it's actually worth it or not. For GNOME, the how do I say this? Like they're known to push newer technologies and to move to move really quickly. They also switched to Matrix. Well, they still have an IRC bridge, but honestly, Matrix is like it's at least a lot better.
Yeah. I have heard from some people that it's a bit worse for moderation.
Matrix
Yeah,
over IRC.
Matrix, because it doesn't
Over
expose
IRC or
because it doesn't expose user IPs like IRC does, which is better for security, but it means you also can't IP ban people.
I mean, there's no easy way to delete messages on IRC either. So
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's the IRC moderation isn't good either. At least with Matrix, where there is a bot, for moderation, it's not good. But at least with time, hopefully, it becomes better.
Yeah.
But yeah, moderation on Matrix does suck. I don't think there is a sane person that will disagree with this.
Well, to be fair, moderation on Discord isn't great either. It's still pretty bad, to be honest. Like, everything's good when everyone's being good. As soon as you need to actually do anything, that's where there's problems.
Yeah, but Discord does a lot better that front. Especially with Matrix, there's also federation, so someone can just spin up. Well, not just, but someone can spin up another instance and start trolling.
Yeah.
Or they can just log into another instance and start trolling.
Yep. Yep.
So there are a lot of issues with Matrix moderation, which is unfortunate because federation is a really cool idea in decentralization.
Yeah, I agree. I think the problem comes with decentralization doesn't. It's not free. Like many things, it might be monetarily free, but the amount of time spent bringing it up to the standards that are expected, that is going to cost quite a bit of time. And the same is true, obviously, for the mailing list that we were talking about before. But from my understanding, GNOME was still using the old Python 2 version of Mailman, so I wouldn't be surprised if the same is true about Linux. Like that, I don't know what they're using as their mailing list software. I presume it's Mailman, but whatever they're using, it's probably going to be the oldest thing they could ever find. It was set up whenever they set the mailing list up.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think that anyone really wants to maintain a mailing list. So, and and at least if we look at Discourse, I'm pretty sure that Discourse, like you can have a contract with Discourse where they host it for you. I'm not 100% sure about it, but it's possible that at least they have some benefits.
I know that you can actually interact with Discourse, like just the regular forum side, through email. I know that is a thing you can do.
Yeah, that's true.
So for that, like, you know, five or so people that want to use email still for it, like, it's an option there, I guess, if you really, really have to do that. but for everyone else, yeah, we're gonna use something else.
Yeah, especially discourse, like it's a lot more approachable, accessible for newcomers
Mm-mm.
or newer developers, because it's just much easier to use than mailing lists. I hate mailing lists. I got used to it. Well, depends how I mean by used to it, because I know how to use it, but I still hate it.
Right, right, right. I
And
think.
even navigating through archives, and it has really bad SEO as well. So it's just bad combinations. Um, Discourse does a much better job with SEO.
Mm-mm. I think one argument I hear made quite often is lowering the barrier to entry lowers the overall quality that is present. And I think there's some merit to that being said, but I don't know whether it really justifies having such a high barrier to entry to interact in this space. I think you can make the argument for Linux, possibly that you only want people who are very serious about it to be getting involved. But I really don't know if that's best in the long run or it just happens to work for Linux. Like you could say that having the mailing list there sort of acts as a way to filter out people who might not be the most serious about getting involved.
Yeah, it makes sense, and that's also why I'm okay with Linux using Bugzilla and all
Mm,
of inaccessible or less accessible platforms.
mm,
Not just that, they also prevent trolls or
mm.
people who don't know how to open issues, because if you go on GitHub, you'll just find many people who will say, "Hey, the software doesn't work. There's no bug report. There's no explanation. Just, hey, it doesn't work. Fix it, please. I beg you."
Mm.
And I doubt like you will often find those types of people on, like, for example, Bugzilla,
Mm.
because Bugzilla, like, they have some expectations from you. Like, for example, you have to choose your own category, and if you look at the category, there's like 50 of them.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so many products, and then I forget the system. There's a product, and then like some category. Then like you have to choose what type of issue it is and what type of the issue. Like for example, is it ACPI or is it
Right, right.
like I don't know? Yeah, all of those stuff. Those little sub projects, some areas of the kernel. Which part of that is are you reporting a bug for?
Mm.
And then after that, it's going to be a feature request, bug report, and then some other stuff as well.
Here's a question for you. Do you think there is ever a possibility going into the future? It's not going to happen until Linus is long gone from the project. But do you think there's a possibility at any point in the future that the Linux kernel will actually move from the way, like, from their own Git hosting setup and from the Bugzilla to, one of these platforms that are available? Obviously hosting it themselves, but move to something like a GitLab, a Gitea, or something like that? Or do you think that Linux is always going to have this legacy and sort of as new people are brought in and sort of get used to the way that it currently works, as the leadership changes, it's just going to continue down that route?
I think it's going to stick with older platforms because companies they fund a lot of parts of the Linux kernel
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of developers as well. So the one of the things where Linus, like the main philosophy, don't break user space,
Mm-hmm.
it's really really useful for in corporate environments because the last thing they want is something to change.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas for user facing, like for us average people, well, we're not average people, but for users who use computers in a non-corporate environment,
Mm-hmm.
change can be fine. but in a corporate environment, changing something is something that you should avoiding as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that they will keep using older platforms just to keep corporations happy with not changing at all.
I think that's going to be true for a very long time at least. I'm not going to certainly rule it out that one day they might discover a reason why they want to move, but I think, yeah, I think that's certainly going to be true for at least the foreseeable future, and definitely until Linus is not involved in the project. Like, probably after Linus and Greg are gone, that's when any level of change is possible. Because both these guys have, obviously, Linus has been involved since the start, but Greg's been involved since, I want to say 2.0, or maybe a little bit earlier than that. So he's been there basically since the start as well.
I think that other people involved in the kernel space, they share the same opinion as Greg and Linus. They're just not as popular, not to say in a rude way. But I think that they will stick. They'd want to stick in the current platforms.
I think the only thing that could
possibly...
sorry?
Yeah, unless they start attracting GNOME developers, it's going to stick as is.
Yeah, I was going to say, the only thing that could really get them to move is if, for some reason or another, Linux does start seeing, like, a reduction in developers. Because right now it's only growing. Like, I want to say 6.0 was like 15,000 commits or something stupid like that.
Jesus.
I don't know how you manage that. And it's not like, they have a team of people handling the merge window. Linus is basically doing the merge window himself. Like, there's a bit of help outside of that, but, like, 15,000 is a lot.
Yeah, Linus, I remember watching something about him. He said that he actually because there's no way that he maintains 25 million lines of code at this point. He actually trusts people maintain certain parts and actually merge without his consultation. So he does he has several people that he does trust a lot for them to merge without telling Linus much about the those merge requests or whatever they are, patches.
Well, even so, if I just told you, you have to go and merge 500 commits, that's not a fun experience.
No, it's not. It's not, especially when you have to review, and then, I have trouble writing, so there are times when the person will have trouble reading what I wrote. So we're gonna have a lot of communication problems as well.
Yeah.
And plus, I also have reading problems, so reading source what they change is gonna be difficult for me as well. So yeah, especially for someone like me, even merging 2 merge requests, it's a lot.
Well, yeah, you've got all of your commits we saw, all of those E's, so...
Again, it's going to get rebased at some point.
Well, I hope so. Wait, I'm just it makes it even funnier looking at the last commits that change stuff. Because basically all of the files that are listed on the front are just E on everything. Oh, that's
yeah, and the first commit is initial, something like that. I made sure that it's a fancy commit message.
I think everyone does initial as their first commit. Just it doesn't matter. It's fine. It is what it is. Wait, let's see what the first one actually is. MISC initial upscaler, refactor port to blueprint, and then just E something. You decided to change it for those just one commit in there. Got bored of just E?
Really? Let me check.
Yeah, there was one that's just something.
I'm just that literally says something?
Yeah.
You have to look at my my commits in bottles in merge requests, because now we have a proper commit message guideline, but in pull requests, merge requests, like it's not really important to have proper like pretty commit messages. So they're just E, oops, F, E, just some random spam stuff.
Oh, that's so great. I love
Like,
it.
let me check the latest one.
Front end add grade tooltips. Front end rename function name for clarity. These are normal names I'm seeing in here.
Oh wait, hold on. Yeah, those are like to the repo itself, not pull request commits or like branch commits.
Oh, those
Yeah, look at this one.
ones.
Yeah,
Okay.
more oops, E, toast, E, oop. Because those are not important. GitHub, there's a nice feature where you can squash, make it as one commit. So yeah, we just use that at the end.
You know, we can discuss how maybe using a mail list isn't the best idea, but Linus is right about some things. You know, maybe naming commits might matter. I know you can squash things, but like in cases where commits probably shouldn't be squashed, maybe having sensible names actually does matter a little, just a little bit.
Yeah, if that is the case, then what I would do is I would just rebase to an older commit, copy the files to a new folder, remove all the commits, write a new commit, like paste that folder and write a new commit. And then I just I do something like that though. But we didn't run into an issue like that does just that. So it's not a big deal for us, at least yet.
Well, yeah, if it's working and everyone's happy with it, then just whatever. It is what it is.
And yeah, again, like I switched from my laptop to desktop, so I need a lot of my commits are incomplete, so I have to do something like this.
Well, it works.
Apparently.
Since we're on the topic of programming, there actually was something I started on before I did my Java classes. So I don't know if you've heard of this, but there is or at least there was, a thing called Lego Mindstorms.
I heard of that.
Basically, it is this like Lego robotics project. Like it's this. So Lego would sell these like robotics kits, which would have like light sensors and gears and all of this fun stuff that you could all play around with. And sadly, it's shutting down. After 24 years, it's actually shutting down. And this... It was a really neat way to get kids interested in robotics, because, you already like Legos. So, it's like... It's this very, very easy gap to close. But... I get it, because nowadays there is a lot of competition in this space. Like, if you look up, like, introductory robotics kits, for example, like, there is so much available. But, I don't know. A part of me is sad that this is shutting down. Makes me want to go and buy up some of one of the newest Mindstorm stuff they have is just for the memes.
Well... is it because like they went bankrupt?
Well, it's part of Lego, so I'm guessing they just killed the line because it just wasn't selling a lot.
Okay, I see. Yeah.
Oh no, they actually have a newer one. Okay, no, this is actually less depressing than I thought it was. So they had Mindstorms, and they also started something called Spike. So I'm guessing they decided to kill the old one and then focus on this new one. Okay, that's less sad than I thought it was.
Okay, so it's like the successor?
That's what it seems like from what I'm seeing.
Okay, not bad then.
But you were saying earlier about your experiences programming before you, like, sort of got into programming and you actually sat down and did it properly. What did you mean by that? Like, had you tried to, like, go through some documentation or something and gave up? Or, like, what really happened there?
Yeah, it's basically that. So, because I had the mindset of, like, I was one of those people who was were frightened by being called like stupid
Yeah, yeah.
by others. And so I tried to do everything myself, where I would read documentation, um, and like I just tried to do everything myself. I tried that a couple of times, but it kept it was never successful. Um, and so I was just like, fuck it, let me try something new at this point. And yeah, so I learned to actually ask help. And this is something that I realized like very quickly in development. Like I even said before, it's inevitable. Like people will insult you.
Absolutely, yes.
That is just normal to happen. What is important is that you actually handle it well. So, and that's basically like what I'm trying to do it. Like I'm trying to handle insults, everything like that, harassments better now. Especially recently. Oh my god, I have no idea why.
It's a good start to a story.
Yeah. Just speaking of, I mean, this isn't really an insult or harassment or anything. It's just like a big what the fuck moment. So someone submitting a merge request on bottles, and what they did, they essentially they tried to pull a Lenny where they removed the code of conduct.
Oh my fucking god.
Wait, actually, let me check if I remember right. Yeah, they just removed the code of conduct. Yeah, like look at the files
Is this just
change.
some random guy?
It's a contributor.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so they just removed the code of conduct just out of nowhere, submitted a merge request and expected something. And I like how the type of change, it says bug fix, which what? But yeah, it's
Wait, so the code of conduct goes from this code of conduct to contributions much appreciated. Okay. It's first commit. Second commit. Oh, okay, so that's deleting the code of conduct. And then third commit is welcome to the bottles community. Grant and indulge, critique constructively within desired privacy. Settle disputes within these confines. Finding yourselves unable, email send, to Mirko, the project maintainer. And all the commits are called Snimple Snupples.
yes.
Okay. How is removing our COC an improvement? Code of conducts aren't authoritarian. Gnome's code of conduct is actually quite base, not gonna lie. Wait, did this person reply in here? Oh, here we go. Oh god, they wrote an essay.
Yeah.
It removes an expectancy from what is an actual navigation of social hierarchy. It then makes everyone subject to the code of conduct. The sections on considerations being welcoming and friendly are additionally meaningless. It is closed immediately following maintainer questioning. What the fuck am I reading?
Yes. The answer is yes. That's basically what you're reading. But yeah, those types, like, even if they're not harassment, even if they're not attacking you, I mean, actually, I partially consider this as an attack, but you will get merge requests, you will get issues with things like that. It is so yeah, again, like, the best thing that we should do is, as a developer, is to learn how to handle those issues rather than avoid them. But yeah, that's what, at first, like, when I tried to get started with programming, I tried to avoid getting harassed, getting attacked by people, which in turn is the reason why I never actually got started with, well, not never, but at that time, that's why I didn't get started with programming.
Right.
Because I just tried to avoid everything. But, yeah, sorry.
What I was gonna say is, with this COC thing, I don't think it's a bad thing to try and remove the COC, but there's a very clear way you go about doing this, and there's a clear way you don't. The way you go about doing this is you have a discussion with the maintainers, and you discuss the merits of whether it should exist or it shouldn't exist. The way you don't do it is submit a merge request out of nowhere and like, I'm just gonna delete it. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, so we want to get bottles in GNOME Circle, and one of the requirements is to have the code of conduct there.
Right, right.
So if we plan to remove the code of conduct, there's no way that we can get it into bottles. Into Circle.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a very, very low likelihood that we are going to remove or even consider removing it, because right now, one of our priorities is to get it on GNOME Circle. We're slowly. It's been like we first made the request 6 months ago, but and we started focusing. Well, I wasn't a bottles developer at that time, but they started working on other things, bug fixes, whatever. But yeah, now we're actually finally putting work to GNOME Circle inclusion, and yeah, I think it's a good thing. I like the code of conduct. I understand like some places, like parts of the code of conduct might sound unwelcoming to certain types of people, but it's also important to really, really protect minorities because they're subject to getting harassed more than like others. If that makes sense. Especially, yeah, I remember I talked to some GNOME, former GNOME Foundation members. They told me that they left GNOME because they were getting harassed by people. Like some of them were trans people. They said that they got transphobic comments. They got a lot of spam, transphobic comments. They were getting harassed like often. So they stopped. Especially how GNOME is a target for trolls and for assholes. So that person told me that they left GNOME for that reason, which is really, really sad. Like, it's not something that people should be doing. And I think that giving more, like protecting minorities more than the majority is a good thing, because again, they're the ones who are more in target than the majority.
Well, no matter what the reason behind you being an asshole is, a lot of people treat the internet basically as like this, I guess, this cloak where it doesn't matter what is done on it. It's like, oh, I can say stuff that I would never say to your face because the internet is here and because there are these avatars between us.
Behind the monitor.
Exactly, yeah. It's very easy to sort of dehumanize someone when you're not directly talking to them face to face. But you mentioned the Lenny situation just a little bit before. Have you paid any attention to what's been going on with Lenny's repo at this point? Because it's it's great.
Let me guess. He's just saying things like, "Oh, we fucked up. I know it. Please come back."
Well, that's what happened on the Discord. But on the GitHub, nothing's happened. There have been like 7 commits since he kicked everyone out.
Good. Honestly, good. I'm glad for that.
Sorry. 9 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11. Okay, he's done 11 commits. There was one other person who...
How big are they?
Well, a lot of them are documentation changes.
Of course they are.
Documentation changes and changing API keys. I think, actually, let's see, how many are not... So we have okay, there's a bug fix, 2 bug fixes. It's about half bug fixes. Okay. Like, I don't know what on the Discord, he was like, oh, maybe doing that was not the most optimal of things to do. It was such a bad idea. Like, how how do you how do you think for even a second that kicking everybody out of the project is going to do anything productive for its future? Like, it doesn't matter if you're kicking them out because they're all left wingers or they're all right wingers. Like, it's just as bad no matter which way you're doing it. Like, you're showing yourself to not be trustworthy if you're willing to kick people out over things that have nothing to do with the project. And the fact that then everyone leaves doesn't surprise me.
Plus, even worse, there aren't any potential contributors as well.
There's like one mod he has on the Discord, and what I've noticed is there's a lot of people who are like in support of what Lenny did. They're like, Lenny, you're so base. This is the most base thing you could ever do. But none of them are helping to develop the code. So it seems like he has support, but in reality, he's thrown away all of the potential developers.
Yeah. And then there's Prism Launcher just continuing like nothing happened.
The day after they had a new launch, and now they're just like, what? PolyMC? Never heard of it. They literally didn't stop developing. They just kept doing what they're doing.
I think it's better. I think Prism Launcher is a really nice name as well.
Either way, it was a PolyMC is not. It's not a bad name, but Prism Launcher, you know, they're both fine names. I didn't really have an issue either way. What I will say is, regardless of which project we're talking about, there's no, like, you're not getting any value out of trolling them. Like, I've seen a lot of troll issues and pull requests on PolyMC, and I've seen a bunch of the same on Prism MC. Like, people being like, hey, let's delete the code of conduct on Prism MC now. And no matter which way you're doing it, you're not being productive. Just, like, look, leave the projects alone. If all you have to do to contribute to it is just, like, post a troll pull request, just go do something else. Do something else productive with your day.
Nah, that involves work. That
does involve
never.
Work, yes.
Imagine working.
Go do CS50 or something. I don't know, anything else. Yes. Go learn to program and then actually make real pull requests.
Yes.
It's dumb.
Indeed.
It's really dumb either way.
Yep.
I'm gonna be really surprised if PolyMC actually continues, and if it does continue, if they ever actually get a flat pack again, because I know that Lenny was saying that he was like working on making a flat pack. Yeah, he was gonna 4 days ago. He was saying he was working on making one. But I don't think any progress is gonna happen with that one.
Funnily enough, like there's already a PolyMC Flatpak on FlatHub that he can literally just copy and paste. I'm not joking.
Right, because it was deprecated, so he could just take what was already there and just continue with it. You don't have to do anything. Just keep doing what was already there. Oh my god, I love it. It's so stupid.
It's okay. At least, hopefully, PolyMC isn't like really relevant. Doesn't like it isn't relevant anymore because Prism Launcher is obviously the successor, and they're actually doing work, which I respect. I completely respect them for that. But yeah, it's. I guess good for Lenny.
Yeah, I guess
you successfully destroyed your own project.
Oh, it's so good. Actually, speaking of funny things that happened, I saw this posted over on r/Linux yesterday. So you know how there is this whole big argument about whether apps should have quote-unquote ads in it, where it's like a message advertising whatever they're support services or whatever. This popped up.
Hmm? Let me check. What the fuck? We're having trouble finding that site.
What?
Interesting. For some reason, the link wasn't working, so it's fine.
Okay.
News significant security update. Oh my god. I love this.
For anyone just listening, news about significant security updates, features and services will appear here to raise awareness and perhaps tease r/Linux.
I like that.
They get so angry about this existing. I really don't know, because it's not like they're advertising Fords. Like, it's app news. It's related to things involved with with what Canonical is doing, and you can turn it off.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, there's nothing wrong with what they're doing. I think it's okay. Like, I fully support, making their work more accessible. Like, if that makes sense. Especially the thing with Ubuntu Pro. People hated on it, but I'm pretty sure it's free. If I remember right, is it free? Ubuntu Pro. But even then, like, I think it's okay what they did, because they're not forcing you to do it, and even then, like, Ubuntu is designed or kind of designed for the average person, or for newcomers. So even then, forcing newer technologies is fine. Like, you will hear many people say, "Oh, Snap sucked because it's being pushed on Ubuntu." Well, I agree the first part that Snap sucked, but I don't agree
Snap
that
sucked for other reasons.
Yeah, but the fact that it's being pushed, I think that's completely fine. And I encourage distro maintainers to do that. Because especially for the average person, they don't really understand how those stuff work. So it's fine to push newer technologies. The issue is that Ubuntu, like Canonical, they're pushing the wrong technology. That's the problem, not the fact that they're pushing a technology. What's it called? SteamOS or Endless OS, for example, or even MicroOS, they push FlatHub and Flatpak. That's good. We need more of those stuff. We need more distributions that push newer technologies, so that there are more testers, there are more, just for the benefits of long-term benefits of the Linux desktop.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I'm stuttering a lot.
No, it's fine.
Talking is not my strongest point. Yeah.
It's fine, it's not mine either. I just happen to run a YouTube channel. It's all good.
Yeah. But yeah, I think what they did, there's nothing wrong with it.
I think, like, when I heard about the ads in apt, I thought it was something a lot more serious than what I'm seeing. Like, I hadn't actually looked into it because I don't care about Ubuntu, but the fact they're just been like, hey, you can get Ubuntu Pro, and that's it. Like, it's also trolling r/Linux, which also I appreciate, because they kind of deserve it. Yeah, it's dumb. It's just dumb. Like, I get the Linux fear about anything possibly involving ads, but this is not the same thing as, like, a YouTube video ad or, like, some sort of data collection. This is just a link telling you that something exists.
Yep, and I just looked at Ubuntu Pro's website. It's free for personal use, so anyone can use Ubuntu Pro for free on up to 5 machines.
What even is Ubuntu Pro?
So, I have no idea, but what's important is that currently public beta.
Secure. I guess it's like quicker security updates or something.
Okay, I guess it's LTS on steroids. 10 years security coverage. So, Yeah, so it's just LTS of LTS at this point.
Right, right.
Um, that is actually cool.
Mm, mm.
That is actually really cool. But yeah, I don't think that's fine, especially now like we know it's free for personal use,
Yeah, yeah.
and well, you can pay for for more machines, but
Yeah, yeah.
at least it's free, and I think that's fine.
Mm. Well, it's a lot of the same complaints about Red Hat as well. Like, Red Hat makes all of their stuff basically free for a lot of the stuff that matters to the regular user, free for the regular user. It's not until we start getting into the corporate space where you actually have to start paying for stuff, which I think is a perfectly fine way to do stuff. Like, I'm not against companies making money. I know some people don't like that, and they just want everything to be this like pure community driven FOSS thing. But I think I like devs getting paid. I know it's a hot take, but I like developers getting paid money and being able to pay their rent. So if you can find a way to monetize a FOSS system that isn't harmful to the regular user, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, it gets even better when they hire
Mhm.
people who actually like FOSS,
Yeah,
open
yeah.
source. Um, so and that's because see, I'd love to get hired by a company to work on open source projects.
Mhm, mhm.
I'd really love to have this opportunity because I love open source, and having this really nice benefit where you can full time work on open source projects is a wonderful like um it's really nice. I mean, yeah, as you said, it's I'm in favor for that.
Mm.
Um, and especially Red Hat developers, like they're really clear that they do care about open
Mhm, mhm.
source. And especially when we look at something like Fedora, people will say that Fedora is just Red Hat. Oh, it's upstream rail. I mean, yeah, it is upstream rail, but they're like, oh, it's a testing ground for rail.
Mhm.
This is like such a stupid statement. Like there is some truth to that, but in reality, Fedora isn't just a testing ground for rail. It's a testing ground for the Linux desktop. It's
Mhm.
thanks to Fedora. It's thanks to the community, not just Red Hat, but to us, like to people who are willing to test software for Fedora, at least for the Linux desktop in general.
Mhm.
Um, it's thanks to them that we have systemd right now, that we have Pipewire, that Wayland is finally getting usable.
Yeah.
Um,
For better or worse, Fedora will get things out to the general public. Because they started shipping Wayland way too early.
yep, and I think that's okay because Fedora they don't advertise to be user friendly, and
Mm-mm.
as much as YouTubers say, which is really unfortunate, like YouTubers actually as a Fedora contributor myself,
Mm.
I will say that Fedora Linux is not user friendly. I do recommend it for people, but I do provide guidance like,
Mm.
oh, you might want to change that, you might want to change this because they don't have the best defaults.
Mm.
Um, and I also tell the user that you might run into issues because there's like Fedora, they want to push newer technologies, and you
Mm.
might have problems with that. So yeah, I let them know. But YouTubers, or not just YouTubers, but bloggers, like many people recommend. They say they mislead people, newcomers, and say
Mm.
that, oh, Fedora is user friendly. Sure, it might be user friendly today, but it doesn't mean it will be user friendly tomorrow because it will have something change, like something internally changed.
Mm.
Um, so, and people, then you'll I mean, at least in my experience, I find many people say, yeah, but people have been saying like Fedora is user friendly, but it's not. I've had problems. Well, of course you did, because people who recommended you, like, they false. It was a false advertisement.
Sounds like you have a problem with some YouTubers.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, kind of, yeah. It's I've been really like I've been thinking of making my own YouTube channel so I can
Mm,
just debunk so many of those shit.
mhm, mhm,
And even I have recently, just a month ago, I made a um I wrote an article about what to not recommend to Flatpak users,
mhm.
because there are many YouTubers, actually not just YouTubers, but again blog writers as well, who recommend things to Flatpak users to do stuff that they shouldn't do. Um, do you know the GTK theme variable?
Yes, yeah, I've
That
discussed this before.
So that is a debug variable, and most themes do not work on libadwaita apps.
Mhm,
So if you are using a GTK3 app and you're using GTK theme variable to override to use another theme, sure, it might work at that time. But once that application migrates to GTK4 plus libadwaita,
mhm,
then your application will be broken.
mhm,
That is, it is going to happen, and especially because the way that people recommended it, they didn't say that it's a debug variable. They didn't say that, oh, it should be reverted later down the road. They're just saying that, oh, it's made to change the theme, but they're not saying that it's made for debugging purposes.
mhm, mhm.
um Hold on, let me show you an issue always in bottles. Hold on, actually, I give me a second. Broken. Okay, there we go.
'Cause I'm pretty sure the
Oh,
last time
where's?
that I discussed this, I did talk about it. I think I just briefly mentioned, um, because people will say like you can't theme libadwaita. Um, I brought up as just a bunch of things as a like, hey, here are these good gnome people that are using libadwaita and theming it, and I think I did mention it as a debug variable, but I don't really focus too much on the theming side anyway. Oh
Mhm.
god, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, that's what happens. Because libadwaita, since it's like an extension, and most themes aren't
Mm
made for libadwaita, so they just apply the GTK3 or GTK4 parts,
mm mm
but not
mm.
the libadwaita part,
Right,
because
right,
that's
right.
completely removed. So yeah, it looks completely broken as we can see here. But yeah, users will run into this issue eventually if they do so use the GTK theme variable.
Mm.
Um, yeah, that's why I have like grudge from YouTubers and from blog writers, or just people recommending those stuff, because they just read like the first sentence in the Arch Wiki,
Mm.
then they immediately. I mean, I would say that it's part of Arch Wiki's fault, as like the writers, like whoever contributed to it, or it's very misleading or it's incomplete,
To
so
be
people
fair
get the
with
wrong impression.
to be fair with this, there are users who are doing the same thing and are having a good experience with it. So it can certainly seem like it is it is working like it should.
Give
So
me
it's not
three.
entirely just people promoting this. Users are trying this and having good results for certain applications and for certain themes that are actually updated to support libadwaita stuff, because that is a thing that apparently you can do. Um,
Yeah. So it's likely that the theme they use, colloid steel dark
mm,
compact Nord, this probably supports the bedweta,
yeah, yeah.
but still, like, people think that like porting to a newer widget, like a newer version of the widget toolkit, I mean,
Mm,
will just perfectly work fine, or they're not going to expect any consequences.
right.
So, and well, I didn't really want to call anyone out on this article, so I just avoided doing that. But this was subtly a direct response
Mm-hmm.
from a video who made some of those recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
What the fuck?
Oh
No,
my
I,
god,
I
what
just opened
happened?
up YouTube and the entire website looks different.
Oh no.
Did they change? Is YouTube changing stuff?
I mean,
Uh,
YouTube changes every like 10 minutes
yeah,
at this point.
I don't know if you're all gonna be seeing the new theme, but what the fuck? Okay, sure.
No, I don't see any differences on my end.
Okay, maybe it's just on my side then, because I
Probably
YouTube
you're
likes
just
they like to roll things out in like testing groups.
yeah.
I don't like
Yeah, I
it.
was just gonna say that you're a beta tester.
Mm. I missed a couple of the
Yeah.
recent ones, like gifting memberships and things like that. So I guess finally they're gonna use me as their guinea pig again.
Keyword again.
Yeah, again. Well, it wasn't gonna stop, that's for sure. It was just gonna take a bit of a brief break.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Libad Waiter situation is really dumb because a lot of people initially thought because of a certain distro maintainer that Libad Waiter couldn't be themed like altogether. Like it breaks theming and it's gonna do all that, which just isn't true because they were looking at an alpha of the API
Hmm.
and it just didn't support stuff yet because it was an alpha because that's what alphas do. Um, but now it's sort of gone the
You know,
complete other direction.
and something that is, no one ever mentions
Mm-hmm.
is that libadwaita is at the end of the day CSS.
Mm-hmm.
So what you can do, if I remember the directory right, it's .config/gtk4.css.
Yeah.
Here you can change every single aspect of libadwaita. The effects, the colors, animation, size, whatever it is, you name it,
Yep.
you can change in that file because libadwaita, it's all CSS.
Mm-hmm.
So it's it's really stupid to say that it can't theme. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just really dumb. And even then, theming in general, holy shit, it's inherently a hack. People don't understand that. It's even when we look at KDE theming, like
Mm-hmm.
Qt theming, people say, "Oh, Qt theming works fine." No, it does not. Just give me a second. Let me bring you some nice. Hold on. Uh,
Oh
just give me a
no.
second.
What are you gonna show me?
Oh, some really, really cursed stuff. Just give me a second.
Sure, sure. I can
Yeah, I'm just
only
bringing up.
I don't know what I should be expecting here. It can only be something bad.
Spoiling alert, just cringe.
Okay, sure.
Okay, hold on. There we go. Look at beautiful themes.
Oh god. Yeah, okay. Open up this one. This that looks like some of my applications. Okay, here we go. I have got too many tabs open. Well, okay, so let's go to the first one. Some sort of document editor by the looks of it. You can barely read the new file button. There's
Yep.
clearly no oh, is this a yeah, it's a code editor. Um yep, okay. Then the file manager here, Dolphin, I guess.
Yeah.
The background of the file windows are white, but the text is still like a light gray. Some of the icons are black on the dark gray background. The icons that are available, I don't like the icon set anyway. But that's a whole nother issue. They definitely don't fit with the overall design that's there though. And then the final one,
Yeah, it's using Gnome's Gnome's
oh,
icons.
is that what those
So
are? Yeah.
yeah, it
Um.
looks nice on Nautilus, at least in my opinion.
Mm-mm. Then this last one is a terminal. Okay, I thought there was another line that was like blending into the background. Well, this is just disgusting.
Yep, people say that Qt theming works just fine. Well, it doesn't. Um,
Well,
because
okay.
at the end,
To be fair,
yeah.
a bad theme works just as badly regardless if it's GTK or Qt. But if you're
Hmm.
putting that time to cross-validate applications, you can make it work. It's just a lot of work to make it properly work.
Yeah, and the biggest problem is that it can never be on par or as good as the default theme
Yeah.
because application developers they will test with the default theme, not with like a million custom themes.
You
Like,
can make an exception for applications that ship themes. So, like, you know, OBS, for
OBS.
example, has like 5 different themes available. Kden Live has a bunch of themes like built in as well. Those you can make exceptions for because those are being tested by the developer.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, like for example, Breeze. Breeze comes by default on Plasma,
Yep.
and most KDE developers will test it on Breeze. And but if they try to use some other theme, they might run into a lot of issues,
Yep.
and it's normal. And I'm not blaming theme developers, and that's precisely the stop theming my app website, right? That's precisely why GNOME developers they wrote this article, because no matter how much work you put in, a custom theme will never be as good as the default theme, because developer will be testing on the default theme, not with the custom theme. So if they change something, it might work on the default theme, but it might completely break on the custom theme.
Right.
And again, like I'm not shitting on custom themers, like the developers who do custom themes. And even in the article, they're not they're not even saying sorry, I have to like cut myself off here. For some reason, people like to bring stop theming my app and be like, look, GNOME doesn't care about users. And
Yeah, I know.
first thing, the first thing they say, like one of the first things they say in yellow or orange, I have nightlight on, so it's orange
Oh,
for me.
okay. You're one of those people.
Yes,
It's
24/7
yellow, yes.
nightlight. So, but yeah, there it says that it is made for distributions, not for tinkerers. Like they made it clear that it was not for tinkerers, but people still say that GNOME doesn't care about their users. Well, the problem is like if users want to break their workflow or their setup, let them do so, but that don't make the company do that automatically for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's sorry. I just had to rant rant a bit for that. Um, yeah, as I was saying, custom themes will never be as good as default themes for
Yep.
the reasons I mentioned. But again, like this doesn't mean you shouldn't use any themes or whatever. I stick with default themes as much as possible because I don't want to run into those issues I just showed you.
Yeah.
And especially when sure, it might work 95% of the time, but the problem, see, it's cool that it works 95% of the time, but the problem is it doesn't work 5% of the time. And when it doesn't work, it's a big, big problem because themes or style sheets, this is all about accessibility. If you fuck something up, you will break accessibility or you will have a much, there's a higher likelihood of breaking accessibility and thus potentially making the application unusable. And with that, developers, they will often get the blame for that,
Right.
even though it's a theming issue. So, my God, I got lost. What was I saying at the beginning?
I, I don't know. That went on for a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyways,
Theming is bad. You're a bad person if you like themes.
no, I think theming is fun. I think it's nice, to experience this stuff. But I completely 100% agree with GNOME that distros shouldn't be theming by default.
Right.
The user do that and break it um in their own will.
Yep.
And yeah, like that myth where Qt theming is perfect, it's excellent, it works well. Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Well,
Because theming in general is a hack.
yeah. Well, unless you have some sort of... The problem is CSS-based theming. That's the main issue. Because when you have CSS theming, you can do a lot of stuff that you probably shouldn't be able to do. When we have, like, a recolor API, like, that's what some would, normally think of when they're thinking of, like, theming. And yeah, you can break stuff with a recoloring API. You can have, like, red text on a red background. Like, yeah, you can do that. But it limits the scope of what can be broken. Like, you can't change button sizes to the point where things are going to completely fall apart.
And it's also see, you know Kvantum or Kvantum, I don't have to say it.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so it works well for the most part, but see Plasma recently they have those accent colors. Now that when a user uses Kvantum's theme and then they try to use one of those like accent colors, it breaks it. So yeah, I don't blame KD. I don't blame Kvantum. Like at the end, this is really it's a really it's really fragile, and accent color is something that users really want. And you know, at this point, it's kind of an essential feature. So I think it's a good compromise where like with GNOME, like they're limiting some parts of theming, but at least what we get in return is like we get a lot more benefits from it. But yeah.
I think that's as good a point to end off the podcast as any. We're just crossing, I guess, like 10 minutes over the 2-hour mark now.
Oh my god.
And I have videos to record for the day still, so I should get to that at some point. So, let the people know where they can find your work.
Okay, alright, let me just send my links. I was not prepared at all.
I thought you were just gonna say them.
Fair enough. Yeah, right. So my Mastodon. Yeah, I forgot. My bad. Yeah, FOSS, Mastodon.
Yes.
There's my GitHub, my GitLab, my GNOME GitLab, and recently my KD GitLab as well, because I started contributing to KD as well. So now I'll be more or less like you're going to see me in some places, especially in quality assurance parts of KD's GitLab. What else? Actually, I'll send you my YouTube channel as well because again, I've been thinking of making YouTube videos.
Yep.
Who knows if I will actually make them or not? But hey, it's worth.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I
have some cursed videos about about my industry.
Oh, you actually do a video on here with... Wow, you have a video about Linux on here. That's impressive. You know, from...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, typical day in the Linux desktop. Just play that. It's
sure.
It's old Plasma on Wayland.
What the hell has happened to you? I'm gonna send you a picture of this. YouTube looks insane right now.
Oh no.
God, what am I seeing right now? What is this?
I guess that's what happens when you're a beta tester.
What is happening to this browser window? Okay then. Yep. Oh. Well, yeah. If you do end up making the videos, let me know, and I'll check them out.
Oh, damn, I appreciate that.
So is there anything else you wanted to mention, or is that pretty much it?
Let's see what else. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's my Reddit.
She's
People
gonna, you're just
following
gonna
me.
keep thinking of everything you can find, aren't you? All the links are on your website. I'll put that in the description.
Actually, yeah. Right. Whoops.
I've got the website.
Oh yeah,
open right
more
now.
importantly, my website itself. I'm so sorry.
Where
I
can
was not
people
prepared
find
for
that
that
website?
part.
What is the link to it? Oh lord. You find that at theevilskeleton.gitlab.io.
I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
No, it's fine. As for me, unless you've got anything else you wanted to mention.
No, I think everything's good.
Okay. As for me, my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there, usually 6 times a week. If you're... Oh, I've got my gaming channel. That is Brody Robertson Plays. We are almost finished with Cult of the Lamb and The World Ends With You. Honestly, by the time this comes out, I may have already finished The World Ends With You, because I think there's like 1 or so streams left. If you're listening to the audio version of this, the video version is available on the YouTube at Tech Over Tea. If you're watching the video version, the audio version can be found basically anywhere you can find an audio podcast. There's an RSS feed, and if you stick it into whatever your favorite podcast app is, then you will be able to watch it wherever you go. Do you have a final word that you want to say?
Well, I guess goodbye, everyone. That's
That's it? Okay.
yeah.
Bye.
Goodbye.